right, we are live. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here, and I'm excited. And again, whether you were here with us in April or this is your first time, this session stands on its own. So even if you weren't here last month when we first launched this corporate advancement hours, it's still this. It builds on, but this stands alone. So last month we talked about the experience positioning gap. We looked at why high performing professionals, stay stuck. And it's not necessarily because of their abilities or what they are able to or not able to do, but it's more about how the market sees them. And so today we're going to go deeper, into exploring that conversation. We're going to go deeper, and then we're going to do some practical work as well on how to close this gap. So not just we try to design these sessions not just to be very content heavy, but also we get to do actual stuff that will apply into our own journey in our corporate advancement, right? That's in our own career advancement. That's the whole concept of this meetings that we have every month. And so today you're going to hear a lot from Stella. Stella, say hello to the people. So she's waving, but
Hello, everyone.
you get to hear from her. She'll take us through on a journey, but I'm excited. So again, please, I want you to be very intentional, be very present. And this is not a lecture. It's honestly a conversation. And so I want everybody to be a part of it, be immersed. All right, so I want to talk through briefly how to this evening or well tonight for some of us how it's going to go. So we're going to start with that distinction that will reframe how we think about everything. So Stella is going to walk us through the three things you actually have to consider when moving the needle on positioning. And then we're going to do an exercise live, right? You're going to audit your own situation and then see where the gaps are in the positioning, when it comes to how you're positioned to advance in your career. And then we'll look at one step you can take, this week that you can do this week that you can apply. So we want to make sure you have a takeaway. And then we will take questions at the end. But if you have something that is burning in your heart and you can't wait till the end, please use the chat and we'll be glad to answer your question. So that's how the day is going to, or this session, the next 70 to 90 minutes is going to flow. All right. So let's talk about reputation versus positioning. All right, are we ready? Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you're ready. Let me make sure that we're all here. Don't just join and then go do something else. I want to make sure that we're all here. I want to get some thumbs up in the chat. This is live. This is not pre-recorded. We're actually here, so this is not AI. All right. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump in. So positioning, reputation versus positioning. Now, reputation is what people say about you when you are not in the room. So, what is the idea of when somebody brings up your name? What follows? That's your reputation. It's built through your performance, through relationships, through being reliable over time, right? So, reputation is something you've become. You've done this thing so well, or you've done this particular thing. Let's not say so well, but you're known for this thing because you've done it over a period of time. There are certain names we mention. We have the World Cup coming up. We mention, soccer or football, and certain names come to our head. We mention people that have not won the EPL in 22 years, and we remember Arsenal. All right, they just won. I know. So that's reputation, right? It's what you are known for, what people say about you, even behind your back. And a lot of high performing professionals, have a strong reputation, right? So a lot of us, people know us. If you are somebody who has been in an industry for a while, for a season, then you probably do excellent work. People already know you. You have a strong reputation. Positioning is different, right? It's what people associate your name with before they even think about you, right? What people associate your name with before they even think about you. It's what comes up when a decision maker is deciding who to promote or to hire, right? So it's not always the best people or the people with the best reputation that get promoted, that get the advancement. It is the people who are positioned the best, almost. So when I'm thinking of, okay, who needs to be in this position, who needs to step into this role, who needs to take a lead on this project, who comes to mind where with decision makers, right? With positioning is about your angle. It's about how you are angled to people who are making decisions. Reputation is perception. It's how they see you, how the general public, how your peers see you. Positioning is, are you aligned enough to where when decisions are being made, you're first in mind or you're top of mind, right? It's very important to tell that distinction. So yes, reputation is important, but when it comes to advancing in your career, positioning is even more important, right? So what do they immediately associate, with you when it comes to your job, your industry, your business? What's your specific domain, your specific area of expertise? Or just in a general sense, what are you capable of, right? Reputation is going to get you recognized, but reputation, your positioning is what will get you promoted. All right. So people know you for your reputation, but what gets you, advancing is your positioning. So I have an example here. Let's say somebody in healthcare, a program manager who's working in the hospital system, and they have 12 years of experience, right? Everyone who knows this person knows they are exceptional. They know they are great, they know they do good work. And then when a director of healthcare operations role has, opens up, this person wasn't considered. And not because they were not qualified, they've been doing the work, right? But in the mind of people making that decision, this is the person, she's the person who manages projects, but not the person who leads operational strategy, right? And so, yes, the reputation is strong, but the positioning for leadership was weak. Does that make sense? And so there's that distinction. Strong reputation is about the work you do, but positioning is about the perception they have of you, especially when it comes to advancing in your career. And so, strong reputation, yes, invisible positioning, that's what this person was missing. And that's why a lot of experienced professionals get passed over time and time again for, for opportunities, for promotions, for just bumps in pay and things like that. That's always the difference. And so positioning is not one thing, it's a combination of three levers, and we're going to be getting into all of that today. All those three levers that you see on the screen, the visibility, specificity, credibility signals, they all have to be working together, right? And when all the three are present, and deliberate, decision makers can see you, they can clearly advocate for you, they can confidently say, this is the person, right? This is the person who can take on this task, who can lead this effort. They can be your voice, in rooms that you are not in. And when any of these ones are missing, you have gaps that cost you opportunities, even when your work is excellent. So I'm going to let Stella take it from here, and she will get, deeper into each of the three levers.
Absolutely. Thank you for kicking us off, and I'm excited to be covering this part. Just like what Dr. Namdi has said, having a reputation, right, keeps you recognized, but positioning is what gets you promoted. And even the examples that you shared, like someone is doing great work, and when I even reflect, like it's very, we channel so much energy and reputation, but then we forget about position, and not because we forget about, but because we just don't know what it is. So I'm going to go over just, those three positioning levers. My goal here is to give you all that memorable framework when it comes to positioning. And each one of these there's going to be action to it. And it's not just for those who are in tech. I know I didn't have an opportunity to ask what industries you work at, but it's domain agnostic, which means you can use it whether you work in tech, whether you work in healthcare, whether you work in government, whether you work in nonprofit, right? And so this is like a really going to be practical session. So I encourage you to have your pen and your paper down, because we're going to be saying certain things, right? And one thing I want you to be able to leave here with is knowing which part of these three levers are probably underdeveloped in your situation, or maybe you're overdeveloped, which is wonderful, but or underdeveloped. So let's talk about positioning, right? Now, Positioning is not just one thing, right? It's not just one thing that we do. It's not just, we talk about LinkedIn profile. It's not just LinkedIn profile. It's not just about networking. Are these things important elements? Yes, of course, with reputation, with positioning. And it's also not just about just, I get a certification. Why is this not translating for me? I would say the combination, right, of all of these things I've mentioned working together. So think about your LinkedIn profile, visibility, talk about networking, making those connections, talk about certification, which is literally continue developing yourself. Now, when all of these things are present, when all of these things are deliberate, when they're intentional, right? Then we talk about decision makers, the people that are trying to get their attention, right? They can clearly see you working, they can clearly advocate for you confidently. But when one or more of these things are missing, right, then those gaps are what now leads to maybe missed opportunities, even if your work is excellent. Because everything I've mentioned so far has nothing to do with your work, whether your LinkedIn profile, people who have amazing work portfolios and they're not on LinkedIn. People are doing great work and they're not necessarily networking. People are doing great work and perhaps they don't need certification because they put in years of experience in that space, right? But when these things are missing, do they lead to gaps? And those gaps could lead to lack of opportunity. So we're going to be going through each of this one after the other. And so let's get started. Let's see. Do I have a question? All right, let's get started with that. The first one we're talking about, Chad, you want to move this, I think you have to move it to the next one, is around visibility. So visibility is, I mean, if you think about what visibility is, and I'm going to ask you to please feel free to tell me, put in the chat, when you hear the word visibility, what comes to your mind? You can put in the chat. I want it to be engaging. What I say, visibility is being seen in the right places by the right people. Um, and not by everyone, right? Not by everyone, of course, because you can be seen everywhere, even for entrepreneurs. When your product, just because you have a lot of people seeing your product doesn't mean it's the right people that have the maybe the money, the heart, the whatever it is to buy that product. So it's not but being seen by everyone, but by being seen in the right places by the right people who can make or influence decisions that pertain to you. Because without that visibility, right, your positioning work is almost invisible because you're doing great work, but sometimes even your manager is not the person who can advocate for you. You have world-class record, you have the strong track record, you're an expert, and you can still be unknown to the people, right? Who have the power to influence or advance your career, basically, right? So the first lever here, I would say, of course, like I mentioned, is visibility. And I say that this is probably one of the areas where most professionals either underinvest in it or overinvest in it. And what does overinvesting look like? This is like literally being everywhere. It looks like you're at every platform, every event, every group, without a clear strategy of why you are in that space, without a clear sense of who exactly do I want to meet there. Like, I mean, I'm not going to go into details about the power of networking and how to be intentional when you're networking. But when we go to a space, like who exactly do I need to be in front of when I go to that space? Do I know who's in that space, who I need to introduce myself to, right? So overinvesting looks like being everywhere without a clear direction of why or even who you are or what your value proposition is. And under investing also looks like keeping your head down, doing excellent work. I don't need anyone to know what I'm doing. Just take my work and be gone with it, and assuming that, well, I mean, God will get the right people to find me. And I think that's how most of, either first gen professionals or, immigrants, have kind of like seen work as, right? And so like Taka mentioned around visibility is being seen doing the great things by specific persons. Absolutely. Great thing. The great one is very important because you have to be great by the right person. So thank you for highlighting those two things, right? So talk about the fact that again, visibility is being seen in the right places by the right people, but there's also the underinvesting in visibility and then the overinvesting in visibility. And so when we think about the right point of visibility, which I would call the deliberate visibility, that is targeted, right? That is identifying the right communities or the specific community, the specific event, the platform, the organization, the connections that I want to make, where the people that get to make decisions in my target space, in my target lane, where they spend their time and where they spend their attention, because attention is important, right? Where they spend their time and where they spend their attention. So, for example, maybe you're a healthcare professional, right? Healthcare operational professionals, perhaps targeting where are the healthcare professional leaders, the C-suite leaders, where are they hanging out? Where are they spending their time and their attention, right? Is it maybe targeting health systems leadership? That might mean that maybe you have been active in something like, let's say, the American College of Healthcare Executives Community. That might mean maybe you're reading or publishing insights on LinkedIn that speak directly to health system challenges. That might mean maybe just volunteering or being visible at regional health system conferences. So those are the kind of thing, right? Figuring out where are the people that have the influence, where are they gathering, where they spend their time, where they spend their attention. So that's an example for someone who works in healthcare. When I think about someone who perhaps work in, let's say, enterprise delivery or as a leader in operations, right? It might mean volunteering or being a part of the PMI community or similar practitioner networks, right? Where those the experts in your domain hang in, or building a LinkedIn presence that demonstrates your delivery leadership, right? And being visible within your organization, because sometimes people forget about the organization and begin to look externally, but it goes both ways. But it's not about just being heads down in your team, but looking around you too. So visibility is important when it's done deliberately. And I think the key word here is deliberately. And when I say deliberately, I'm also aware that people might have different things going on in their life, right? Deliberate visibility doesn't mean it's extra work. It can actually be less work when you're very intentional about it. It can really be work where it doesn't feel like an extra load you have to carry, you have to go for this event. No, you can literally be finding the right things that work for you. And because you're not trying to be everywhere. You're not trying to be everywhere. You're trying to be visible in a consistent way in a specific place where positioning matters. I'm going to say that again. You're trying to be consistent in a visible way, right? In specific places where positioning matter. That's what we're talking about visibility. All right. So let's move on to the second one right there around specificity. Being specific. This is important because now in the world of AI and things of that nature, there's something called like the T-shaped skills, the pie-shaped skills, being a generalist versus being a specialist. People might have different opinions about this. But when we think about being specific, it's about being associated with a defined domain or expert area or capability rather than just being known as being generally good. So the market most times actually rewards specialists rather than generalist, which means what are you known for? What is your specific domain that you're known for? Because people have this unconscious assumption that generalists are less capable, which is funny because you think, well, they can do everything, right? But they think generalists are less capable because they feel like specialists are easier to place in a specific role and easier for decision makers to advocate for them confidently. So versus this person can do so many things. Okay, so but what exactly can they do well? Well, they can do so many things. Versus this person can do this one thing well. Where if a role, for example, opens up or a promotion opportunity opens up for that specific expertise, there's no confusion as to can they do this or is this like maybe minor for them and the other one is major, right? So that's what I want to talk about that this second level around just being very specific. And I say that when I think about this, even for me as a career professional, sometimes it's the hardest one for high performing professionals to accept because most of us actually can do so many things well. Most of us have built our career in different wide range of things. When I reflect, like I've worked in sales, I've worked in education, I've worked in finance, I've worked in tech, even what I do, like maybe nonprofit, leadership, being a coach, work in the women development space. So it feels like you've gathered expertise in all of this area, right? And that breadth is real. So I want you to put in the chat, what are the multiple places that you've worked in that you've also built expertise? So there's one about that you build experience. Let me say experience, right? Because one thing to have experience, and not to be an expert. And most of the time we undermine our experience because we think we're not an expert in it. So think about your experience. Like where have you worked in and where have you garnered experience in? I want to be able to say that in the chat, right? And now I said this to say that your breadth is real. Like your breadth of skills is real and is valuable. But breadth without that point of specificity is what keeps a lot of high performing, excellent professionals stuck. And that's what keeps them in a generalist role. And that blocks your ceiling of what's possible for them. So when I say specificity, right, it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean narrowing what you can do. It just means that you're clear on what you can do specifically, right? That you are clear on what you're known for. So if I ask you right now, for example, what is one thing that if someone said your name in a professional context, they would immediately associate you with, right? If you cannot answer that in a clear sentence, then that is a specific gap. And it's one of the most expensive gaps that a professional can have. Again, the question is, what is one thing if your name is mentioned in a professional setting, people associate you with immediately? And so, for example, the healthcare professional that we talked about earlier as an example, right? Being specific might be, I am the person who, let's say, leads the operational redesign of clinical service delivery in complex health systems. That could be an example. For the public health professional, it could be I'm the person who designs and manages population level chronic disease intervention programs. I'm just spitting out examples here, right? When I even think about myself, which is funny because I just went through a new expansion, in my place of work, right? And I was just and the good thing about this right now, of course, is you don't have to feel like I have to figure all of these things mentally. You can leverage AI, and that's one of the things we have within our program is literally leveraging AI to be able to answer some of these questions so that you don't feel like you're stuck, you don't know what to do. How am I going to mention what I do with all of the skills that I have, right? So I think it's very, very important that you're able to put in one language, for example, the skills that you have, right? So leverage AI, put your skills down, do some mapping. We're going to go through that, and I'm also going to share in the chat later, even my own one as well too, right? Because I had to do that exercise, like and this can also be your elevator pitch. How do you explain yourself? How do you say what you do, right? So each of this again is specific. Everything I've said so far is specific for the public health professional, for the healthcare professional, and each of those is something that a decision maker can immediately place in a role. They know, oh, this person can do this, right? This person can do that. They're known for this, right? And so being specific, is an added advantage that a lot of high performing professionals struggle with because of how expansive their area and breadth of skills are. So let's talk about level three, right? Real quick. So we talk about the credibility signs for level three, the credibility signs. Do you want to move to? Thank you very much. Now, credibility signals and signs are the tangible things that people can see that give decision makers proof that they can advocate for you, right? So think about your credentials, think about your portfolio work, think about your um, feedback, think about your published thinking, your demonstrated thought leadership, And the difference between a strong credibility sign and a weak one is that external verifiability, right? Can someone else see it and confirm it independently of your own claim? Because now a lot of people can say anything. Like people say, "Oh, I'm a thought leader." Well, do we know what thought leadership means, right? Are we putting work out to back it? And sometimes again, we also undervalue the skills that we have because we think, well, I haven't gone to this place, I haven't gone to that, I haven't done that, so I'm not a thought leader. No, put out content. Something is happening, talk about it. Think about the I wanted to say think about the agile because my space is agility, but think about your domain version of it, right? Write about it, write about what's happening in for example, me, agile and AI space. What maybe the agile view of World Cup. Look at trendy market issues, and think about how can I put my own expertise on top of it. And right now, with the information overload that we have, it's not lack of content we have, is actually being able to refine the content, being able to pull back versus overflooding everywhere with AI generated content and putting your spin, literally to it, right? And so again, credibility signals. Most people also underestimate this because they feel like, well, my track record should speak for me. Yeah, it would speak for you if you had mouth. But you are kind of like the voice of your track record, right? And that track record also matters because there's some people that have track record that are quiet, and those who are loud have no track record. Isn't that funny? Right? And that's why people are like, well, I know better than this person. Oh, my track record is great. Why are they promoting that person? Well, that person was speaking. That person was everywhere, right? And so think about it, your track record matters. But in most hiring and promotion panels or conversations, the people advocating for you might not have worked with you up close. So they're not necessarily seeing it, or if they're seeing it, they're seeing it from the view of somebody else. What if your manager is not your biggest fan? What if your manager doesn't also understand the depth of the work that you're doing, right? And these people are people that they need something that they can point to say, especially if someone challenges that recommendation, like, hey, this person has this breadth of work. If someone asks you right now, can I see a portfolio of your work? Do you have that available? Is that accessible? So credibility signal is anything again that demonstrates your expertise in a way that does not require your advocate to start explaining or start speaking big grammar. Right. So think about that. A completed credibility from a recognized institution, and for an example, is in your LinkedIn. Do you have a portfolio project that has documented result, that has feedback from those who you've worked with? Do you have a piece of published thinking on LinkedIn? Do you have your own LinkedIn articles? Do you have a case study? So those are the things that you can think about, right? Sometimes they can point and say, hey, this person has done this. This person talks about this consistently. And so if I'm going to leave you with a question for you tonight will be around if someone who has never ever seen your work directly, they needed to advocate for you for a senior role in your domain area, in your space, right? What would they point to? What exists externally that they could show someone else as evidence of your expertise and your readiness? That's a question you have to think about. And it doesn't end because the more you work, guess what? The more your portfolio increases. And so this is a good time for you to get started. This is a very important conversation that we're having right now. This is a good time for you to get started because the work just begins, right? So we're going to be pivoting to the part three of today's session where we're going to be talking about that. We're going to do that life assignment or life right now. Again, like I said, get your pen and paper out, right? This is going to be I would say, the most practical session of tonight, right? I want you to be able to do the work life. I want you to be able to come out with your own specific diagnosis of your own positioning gaps, so that you can have that clear sense of which of these levers that we've mentioned in the chat, or you can put in the chat, do I feel like it's underdeveloped, right? So I'm going to go through the levers again, real quick so that you remember. Talk about visibility. We talked about being specific, right? I'm talking about credibility. Those are the three key levers, right? And so we're going to do this exercise. So let me know if you're ready for the exercise. Give me thumbs up so like I know that you're still with me. Anyone? Awesome. All right, I see multiple thumbs up. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, let's go for it then. All right, so we're going to be doing this exercise where I'm going to walk you through three questions, right? And one, I've kind of like already talked about the beats, each of them through the three levers, but I'm going to be raising that up again, right? And as we go through each of these questions, I want you to answer honestly, because that's the only way we can grow when we're honest about where we're at, and where we want to get to. So answer honestly about where your current situation is. I know we have goals for the future, but just answer honestly about where I am right now, like where you actually are right now, right? Not futuristic, not figuratively. So the question one I'm going to read aloud. So I'm going to read it twice so that you follow through, and in case you have any question, let me know and things of that nature. If I have to speak slowly, I can speak slowly as well. So the question one, name the three most senior people in your target domain outside of your immediate organization. All right. Who know your name and associate it with relevant expertise. If you cannot name three, how many can you name? And how did they come to know you? I'm going to say that again, all right? Name three most senior professionals or people in your target domain outside of your immediate organization. They know your name and they can associate you with relevant expertise that you have. Now, if you cannot name three, which is fine, then how many can you name? Now, not only are you writing their name down or writing how many you can name, I also want you to write down how did they come to know you? How did they come to know you? Just be honest with yourself. If anyone is done, feel free to put thumbs up. If anyone needs to maybe sit or reflect on this a little bit more, maybe we don't have all of the answers again, which is fine. You can give me a smiley face. When I think about this, right, for most professionals who are doing this exercise, especially for the first time, the honest answer sometimes is one or two people. And most of the time they have the names of people within the organization. And the target for deliberate positioning here is 3 to 5 senior professionals that are actually outside of your email organization who can associate your name with specific expertise. And that with that comes consistency, right? So, and sometimes you might be in a space where it's evolved. When I think about my space, like when it comes to agile as a way of work and as a way of life, I sometimes I struggle with that because the market is shifting, it's changing, all of those things, right? Agility is no longer something that is unique. It's not embedded in how organizations work and how they want their team to function. But I still put out, content out there. I definitely know, like within my community, when we think about agile leadership, like my name comes up because over the years, that's where I have literally pitched my tent and still pitching my tent on. Within my company, that's a no-brainer. But outside, even if it's one or two you can name, that's okay. It means that it just shows you where the room for growth is right here. Does anyone have any thoughts or question that they want to or any feedback you're getting, even with this first activity you've done that you want to share, or any question? Let me know. What are you feeling by just even thinking about this question and figuring out the names of what name? Are you finding names easily coming to you, or are you struggling with the names? Or are they all within your organization, or do you have names outside of your organization? The floor is open for anyone who wants to share. I'll give you a couple of minutes before I go back to the question too.
I can share.
All right, good talking. Oh, go. Who
Yeah,
was speaking?
this is Leticia.
Go, Leticia. And then after you tackle.
Yeah. So I could think of one person
Mm-hmm.
that I have like direct contact with, and we met at a conference that we that was like in a separate context, but we ended up working together, and them asking me to present at other conferences, um, you know, over time. And I'm not even sure that this person can say, besides the conferences that I've presented at with them, I'm not sure that they can speak necessarily to, for example, the work I do in the community, or like my work that I do 9 to 5. But, because I'm in the mental health space, I think, they can speak to my experience in mental health in general, but not like specific. So, um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so even as you were discussing the 3 points, I think the specificity was what jumped at me, that, maybe I need to be more specific when it comes to the different things that I do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing and also for sharing where you met this person. That it also gave you the opportunity to speak at a conference, but there's still a gap there in they don't necessarily know your depth of work. And so I think even identifying the gap is the first step in the right direction as to what else can be done to close that gap. And we're gonna go to another second question. I think that might be able to answer that question. But thank you for sharing, Leticia. And Takim, you want to go next? You're on mute if you're speaking.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Yeah, to me, anyways, I have different backgrounds that I've
Mm,
come across. I have a pastoral background where I have so many people in that domain that know me.
mm,
Then I'm trying to build up a career now in this other direction. I've just gone to school in the International Relation Institute, and
mm,
so there I want to build a career as a peace builder. I want to build a career on advocacy against against violence in all its forms. So for now, I've just gone through a fellowship program with the Women Ascension. Those are the people that know me, like the founder and president. So I don't really have many people that I can actually name out of the organization where I'm working as a volunteer.
mhm.
But then, yes, I have just that one founder and president that I'm just completing a fellowship program. So I'm still building up a career.
Okay. Well, I mean, the
Mm.
good thing is you have a lot to work from or work with, and we have more, things down the line to help support people like, yourself that has a lot of experience like this and identifying that. And I think let me go to audit question two real quick. I think that will kind of like help with some of the open questions that you all have. So this
Okay.
is question two, right? So I want you to complete this sentence in one clear statement. I am the professional who dash. Now, this statement should be specific enough that a decision maker who reads it would immediately know which kind of role you are the right person for. And if you cannot complete in one sentence, or if the sentence you produce could apply to 50 other professionals, then that's where we have that specificity gap, right? And it's usually hard because this will require peeling. Sometimes this will require removing yourself from things that you've held so closely as to this is who I am, this is who I am, this is, And again, I understand it before. For those who have multi things that they're passionate about, it's like, well, I'm a professional who pastors, but then I'm also a career person, but then I'm also in this. But then it's like, okay, so but what role are you really prime or ready for, right? So I want you to think about that. I'm the professional who, and again, you don't have to have the answer now, but it's something you will need to have the answer for you know um some common answers that I've seen with this is maybe someone says, I'm the professional who delivers results, I'm the professional who leads teams, I'm the professional who solves complex problems. These are not specific enough. Anyone can deliver results. My daughter had delivered results in her fourth grade. I'm the professional who leads team. One of my daughters in school leads the team, he leads her, her squad in her school, right? A professional who solves complex problem. Anybody can be solving complex problem. So these are not specific enough. These are descriptions of what your competence is, right? So if you think about specificity, it will sound like, for example, I'm the professional who leads the operational redesign of clinical workflows in complex health systems. Or maybe I'm the professional who leads the maybe the mental shift and mental redesign of first gen immigrant professionals in the diaspora. For example, for you, Leticia, just giving an example, right? So there are multiple things that can be added, and being specific doesn't mean that you can't do every other thing that you enjoy doing, just by FYI. But I wanted to say that this is where I think a lot of people need some time with to answer. And question number three, because I think we are, for time's sake, right, is then credibility. Credibility. And I believe that a lot of people on this code don't have a credibility issue. But I'm just going to ask this question, more like a credibility audit is, if you list every credential signal or every credential that you currently have that is externally visible in your target domain. So have you finished a credential? Most people finish credentials, take certification, but they never post it anywhere. Nobody knows about it. Have you written a published piece of thinking? And not just to do a shameless plug here. I'm part of a nonprofit African American collective, and now we have a Substack account, and we're asking our in-house knowledge partners who are experts to publish, to share from their experience, from their expertise. Guess what? Their name is going to be on there. It's connected to the aim. When they search for them, for example, let's say someone is searching for them to come and be a speaker or something, search for them, and they see their article connected to a nonprofit that helps African immigrants in diaspora. Not only are they that, I mean, there's clarity there. Like, oh, they work with diaspora professionals or diaspora leaders. Well, we're also looking for someone who can speak about this in a diaspora conference. Now, there's that connection you know and so that's an example of a credential signal right there, right? So a quantified professional achievement that someone outside of the organization can verify. How many do you have? How many do you have? Because sometimes we get so occupied in doing the work that we don't even have time to put our head up to say, okay, I need to write something this week. And that could be something that you can target or you can plan. All right, so this is what I'm going to say, right? Because this is what the audits should be telling us. Whichever question or which of the audits you feel produce maybe the shortest or the least confident answer, that is a place where you want to focus on. That's where I would say the work begins. You don't have to do everything, so we don't want you to get overwhelmed. But the one part that you feel like is the most underdeveloped, like Letitia talked about, I think you said was specificity, or I think was yes, that one, right? That should be where you spend some time in building up for, right? Um, because for professionals, the audit reveals one of three patterns. Either visibility is a gap, which means your work is strong, but no one knows about it. Or specificity is a gap, which means that there's real expertise, but it's not been named, it's not been claimed, it's just general. Or credential gap, which is the experience exists, but there's nothing that anchorable, there's nothing external that demonstrates it to someone who has worked directly with you over the years. And any of these things is workable, right? And so after going through everything, please feel free to put in the chat V for visibility. If that's where you think I'm going to be starting, that's what I'm going to start working from. Is it for visibility? You can put V in the chat. Is S for specificity? You can put that in the chat. That's where you're going to start working from first. Or C for credibility or for credentials. You can put that in the chat as well. And I'm going to hand over to Dr. Nami to also take us to the next part of this. Okay. I see A and S. Um, okay, I was like A. Okay, S. Great specificity.
All right. Thank you so much, Star. That was incredible. And I hope everyone gained some, has gained plenty of value from all of this. I was thinking when you were talking the credibility, the specificity one, I recall just going through several interview cycles, recruiting and interview cycles, and so my realm is database engineering, and also um, now we do a lot of leadership and nonprofit work. But so I have a background in computer engineering, and then but I've gone through like okay, it's computer engineering, then there's database engineering, and I've had conversations where they'll ask me, okay, what's your strength as a database engineer? What do you prefer to do? And I think that's the question they're asking me is, what's your own specific like area of strengths? What should we expect to know you for? A lot of recruiters have called me and then they will say things like, this employer, the role is a database engineer role. But then when you speak to them, they have this very elaborate job description. And but when you talk to them, they tell you, well, the client is looking for somebody who can really do this, this, and this. And they mention a couple of things. And so you realize the market is not necessarily rewarding a generalist anymore. Yes, you can come from a domain, you have a computer science and you're a jack of all trades. But then people want to hire you for what you're a master of, right? Where you come in, and that's what we want to promote you for is somebody who can lead this effort, who has pioneered, who we can consider somebody who can lead and take us to the next level with this strengths of expertise. And so that specificity realm is important. Visibility clearly. Nobody knows what you're good at, especially people that make decisions. Then that's a challenge because that's wasted wasted intelligence. And so all of that credibility. Please leverage all the technology we have today. I started doing something recently where I want to put out more thought leadership things, and so I take incidents from things that I worked on the previous week and I try to summarize that into a LinkedIn article. And that goes out every Monday to showcase and then I frame it from a leadership perspective because that is something I want to be known for. So there has to be some intentionality with credibility. So anyway, we're talking through these things because that's what we do, we live, and we show people how to do. All right. So thank you again, Stella, for taking us through this, and I need to catch up to where I feel like I'm behind on where you're on the slides. Okay. All right. So we've gone through the audits. All right. So we have Stella has walked us through all the three positioning levers, and I can see thank you all for being engaging and all the engagement in the chat. You have done your own audits, you know where your gap is now. Before we open for questions, we'll take questions in a bit. So you can start putting your questions in the chat. I want to give you a specific task to do, and you can already see that on the screen right now. So this is something you need to do in the next 7 days, right? And again, this is not a system. This is not a plan. It's just one step, and it's very important because we want you to take this step. We want to make it as simple as possible. Right now that you've identified your primary, gap where it is, I'm seeing a lot of S's in the chat. So whether it's visibility, specificity, credibility, you've found your one step. Now, each of these ones they take a little bit of time, but again, we want you to have movement. So research, on career transition, shows that professionals who start even with small action they are significantly more likely to complete the transition than those who wait until they have the full plan, right? So your audit told you what your primary gap is. Your first step is on this slide, right? It's on this slide. So let's get into it. So for you, if you're on the visibility, identify one professional community event or platform in your target domain where decision makers spend their attention. Don't join it yet. Just find it and figure out who's inside of it. Right? It might be a LinkedIn group, it might be Reddit, it might be a WhatsApp group for all we know, right? But where are the people who make decisions? A professional community, where people who need to, who you feel like are decision makers. For some, it might be like a golf club or something, right? You know, depending on what your objectives are, the people that are going to, who sit and decide on the fate of people like you in your position, where do they gather, right? Where do they spend their time and attention? So maybe not necessarily a physical domain, but it could be a LinkedIn group. For the specificity one, take that sentence you wrote. I'm the professional who does da 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 da. That one sentence you wrote in the audit, share it with one person who knows your work well, and then look for their honest reaction. Right? Again, don't try to give them your sentence and see what how they react to it, because then that will tell you whether you told the truth, whether you're telling yourself the truth or not. All right, somebody who can speak for your work, not somebody who's going to just respond like ChatGPT and tell you that that's great. I don't know if you've gone through AI, just makes you feel good about everything you post in their chat to tell you, ah, that's awesome. This is the right direction. Again, this is just to verify that okay, I am who I say I am, right? So you're either doing the identifying the place where decision makers are gathering, or give somebody your sentence, and then for credibility signal, if that's your gap, identify one credential, one portfolio project, or a piece of published thinking with the highest positioning impact if completed in 60 days. Don't start it yet. Just identify, okay, if I write this article, if I get this certification, what's the one thing you need to add to your portfolio that will have the biggest, that will make the biggest shift? If you had that in the next 60 days to shift your how you are viewed in the industry, do that research and then identify it, so that you know what it is, figure out what it requires. Because for some, it might require you maybe making some signing up to take an exam, taking some classes. It might require doing something. Whatever this is going to cost you whether time or resources. But identify what that is and then what the cost of it will be in terms of efforts and all of that. All right. So this is your homework. And so with that, I will transition to Q&A, right? Anybody have any questions? Feel free to, if you want to unmute to ask your questions, we'll take your questions. Or if you can also use the chat as well, and we're also looking in the chat to take a couple of questions and then we'll kind of start wrapping up today. Any questions around whether everything Stella really went through with all the three levers for positioning? You have any particular question, maybe on how to take action or start acting on the homework that we just gave you, that you have to turn in to get grades? Anybody have any questions?
Yes. So I'm curious to, I guess, understand. I know, like, on my LinkedIn, for example, I have like a lot of like counselors and other people in the mental health space and all of that. So I kind of assumed that that would be, my main platform.
Yeah.
But then, like, do you kind of like just choose a platform and put content on there and then kind of see where it goes? Or like, what's the best way to start, or like to pinpoint where to find your audience?
And Stella, feel free to chime in at any point. But
Sure.
my approach to this is, right, it's which place is regarded as the authority, right? The authority source for your domain, right? So if people are speaking on, say, mental health, where is that reference point that they normally go for? That means if it's coming from here, then there's likely a level of it can be trusted. If somebody comes and tells me, "Well, I saw this article on Instagram, or I saw this post on Instagram," it waters down the effect for me. Like anybody can post anything on Instagram, right? But if somebody tells me I am part of this, uh, um, I'm part of this LinkedIn group and for database administrators, and somebody posted this article about this, or somebody comes and says, you know what, I'm in this Facebook group. It's for Africans in tech, and they somebody was posting about how Meta is planning to do another layoffs in August, because we have a couple of people who work for Meta, right? You see, I'm likely going to pay attention to that than somebody posting from, well, I just saw this thing on X, as somebody said. So which spaces carry the, have that authority factor when it comes to your own field? It might be a group, right? It might not be a big name, like it might not be a LinkedIn. It might just be a like a Facebook group or a WhatsApp group, a school platform. It could be a Reddit, what they call the things in Reddit for the groups in Reddit where people go and have, like you say, a lot of what I found with a lot of people. Reddit is such a reliable, not reliable, but it's such a big source when it comes to, especially research. A lot of founders leverage Reddit for, getting feedback from the public on their ideas, idea validation and things. So where is that credibility source when it comes to your field? If it's LinkedIn, then it's LinkedIn. If it's specific groups inside of LinkedIn, then maybe you need to narrow it down a bit further. Or it could just be other groups that are customized, something like that. So that's my response to that. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
Yes, that's helpful. Thank you.
You're
Yeah, I think
welcome.
you've covered a bit a bunch of it, but I would say just put it out there. Just I think that's where you do that specificity exercise. It helps you get clear on what kind of content you want to post, and you just have to be consistent with it. And you find out that while there are two ways, is pull and push, right? So you are in those places where you're going to be pulling people. If you put in the right places, people will see it. But there's also where sometimes the LinkedIn algorithm might just connect your stuff to people that need it too. So I'll say don't get overwhelmed as to should I not post this right? It's not right. Just do it because the way I see sometimes it's also mental where you have to let it flow out of your mind. And you get clear, your message will get clearer basically.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, just start. I think that's consistency beats like thinking about it. Just start and then move from there. Any
Um,
other questions? We'll take a
mm,
couple more before we move forward.
mhm.
Um,
Understood. Thank you.
you're welcome. Now, some might be thinking maybe I don't have time because we're asking you to. I don't have time for LinkedIn, for posting on LinkedIn to create the content, um, or maybe even for events to go do, connect with these people to network. Um, and my response to that is targeted bits volume, right? So whether it's one specific post per month that's speaking to your authority, that's better than once a week. I'm a big advocate for once a week, once a month, but something to where it's predictable and it's consistent, right? Versus just randomly again, because we are so inundated with content right now, and it's easy to access information in the age of artificial intelligence. Um, don't don't get caught up in the web. But let me just go to ChatGPT and generate something and post. Um, Leverage AI to create original thoughts, right? It's your original thoughts, but then you're using AI to modify it or to make it meaningful or targeted. To where you build something with the help of AI, but it doesn't exist anywhere else. It's not a general thought. Like it's that's what I would say. Don't just churn out information it doesn't move the needle and nobody's going to read. But leverage that. Okay, this is based off of the things that's happening for me and what I'm seeing, or an original thought that's happening within my realm. I am going to put this out. I'll use AI to validate a thought I have around maybe an event in my field, in my space, and then now that creates an original thought, right? I validate the numbers. I validate, okay, am I even what I'm thinking versus what the reality of the market is? Do that research, and then I'll pen down my thoughts and then use AI to you know, make it make sense to the reader that I'm targeting, and then you put that out. So a bit of thought. That again, I guess that's how the thought leadership concept happens. And so, just wanted to add that as a tip for anybody who is looking to start building that credibility lever in their own journey.
Thank you, Dr. Nandi. I wanted to piggyback off of that.
Okay.
And So it's really interesting what you said about, you might be having a thought about something, right? And you don't know if this is like a wildly accepted thing in your field yet,
Yeah.
or you're kind of just like putting it out there, and you may not feel like, and even if it's like a very strong theory, right?
Yeah.
You may not feel like you can say this as in, oh, this is the new thing,
Yeah.
right? Like, what kind of language do you use to introduce like a new theory, or kind of like to put it out there to not to sound like, oh, because a lot of times, and I think in my personal life, people tend to tell me that I have a, like the way I explain certain things, it's like I've already made up my mind. So I try to be a little more cautious when it comes to my professional life because, you know, I don't want to sound like the theory I'm working with is necessarily gospel, right? So
Yeah.
how do you navigate that balance between still like speaking with authority while still, while being cautious of, oh, this is just like a theory I'm working with?
Okay. That's a very good question. So I have one question for you. Are you the authority?
Well, not necessarily since it's a theory, it hasn't
It's
been
a theory, but
proven
you are an
yet.
authority. Like in your field, you're an authority. You have the right to speak on whatever it is you want to speak on because you have the
Right.
credentials, you have the
I
experience,
do.
right?
Yes.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's your permission to give your opinion, right? If you in the world that we live in now, it rewards bold ideas, right? Bold
Mm-hmm.
thoughts, bold. It's the people who say the most outrageous things, right? In the world of this thing, we call them hooks. Maybe the
Mm.
thoughts that they are sharing is not even but they will start with something like nobody is getting hired again, and like they'll say something outlandish.
Right.
Mental health is dead. And then now you're like, how the heck? And then you go on to
Right.
read what they say, and you realize, okay, there's a thought here that's valid. So I'd
Mm.
say don't be, whatever the thought, no matter how bold it is, that's your authority, right? And then you're speaking from a place of you're doing your research before you're putting things out. But
Right.
also frame the things you put out as this is my thought.
Mm.
Always give that disclaimer. This is not a widely accepted. This is not something that has been adopted by the National Council for Mental Health of the United States. You know how we have this drug? They always give us those disclaimers. This medication has not yet been
Right.
FDA approved. It's just letting you know we think this works, but FDA has not given us the approval. So just know. So it's the same. It's the same thing. You can, if you feel like there might be some person coming with some questions around or coming to attack the validity of what you're saying, lead with this is my thoughts and this is based off of my professional expertise. This is what I think, and you have the right to put that opinion out uh, because you're an authority in that space. I'm seeing Stella. She's jumping to say something. I can see your face.
Understood. Yes.
Go ahead.
I mean, I agree. You asked a good question about who's the authority in this space. And while your mind might be made up, you also, I would say, just even still giving room for, of course, hearing other people's opinion, flexibility to get there. Because just because there are diverse opinion doesn't mean someone else's opinion might be wrong. It could just be two perception about two things, right?
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
could also even be what you write about. You can literally start with like, this is my opinion, this is what I believe until then I heard someone say this, right? Well, I'm like, wow, now it's making me think, now you're creating an article from your experience,
yeah.
and I think that's another way to go about it. But if you definitely lead in a particular space, own it. Because if we don't own it, it will come across how we write, how we speak, how we introduce ourselves, and things of that nature. So it's okay to own a space while knowing that there's more to learn about that space.
Yep,
Got it. Thank
there
you.
is. That's awesome. Yeah. So please, if you have those thoughts, share it. You're speaking to a particular audience, a particular group on a particular idea that you have the right to speak on. There's a lot of unqualified people talking. I'm telling you, there's a lot of unqualified voices that are speaking, and occupying space where they shouldn't be, and because they are so loud and consistent, they have built a following, they have built an audience, they have built people who, who haven't gone to do the research to verify the authenticity of what these people are saying. And there's you who actually does the work and has the expertise. Um, and because you're careful about, I want to make sure this is, you know, we're missing out on the opportunity to actually give, lend our voice to important, that's important transformations that could be happening. So, please go for it, and speak on that. And that's how you stand out in the market. In the end, it's that one article, that one thing you post that will lead to somebody. The day somebody wants to make a decision on you and they look you up, what would they find? Right? It's all those things that you have put out that become your credibility signal, right? That's your consistency. I saw, and again, not related, but not related directly to this, but I saw somebody interviewing an investor, big Silicon Valley investor, and the person was like, well, before they invest in a founder, they go look up their social media, right? And they want to see what you're passionate about. If you're asking us for a seven-figure investment and you never talk about this thing that it just shows us your attention is not. We want a founder that is invested in what they're asking us to invest in, right? So it's the same way these decisions are. In 2026, they will check. I can tell you, I've had people reach out to me on for job opportunities and tell me they looked up, they saw my YouTube, right? They saw a post I did on YouTube. It's become real, valid conversations. And so, please post. You're giving people what to see when they do that. That's Googling your name is the first background check. So, own that SEO for your name. All right, we'll take one last question. If is this one more question before we move on to the next thing? All right, I will gently proceed. So, before we, wrap it up tonight, if tonight was useful to you, then and you want to take this conversation from, from a conversation to an actual plan, that's exactly, we have a program called the Career Architecture Intensive, and it's built for diving deeper into this, workshopping all of this in detail. It's a full day, a full day structured experience where you live with a documented six-figure career lane, a validated income trajectory, a 12-month roadmap built around your specific background. And so I've put the link in the chat. It's going to be our first one will be happening in next month. That's the next cohort again, where we're going to go in depth. You leave with a 12-month roadmap. So regardless of your field, we've designed it to make sure that we cater to. It's not a even for this event. We're trying to make sure that it's not just a like just what you learn here you can take and apply. Um, so what we're doing in that next one is we're going deeper. We're just going with you. Now we're doing it with you. I'm making sure if there's any gaps, any things you're thinking about, we are workshopping everything with you. It's an all day event, so we start by 9 a.m. And we go till 5. It's going to be June the 20th. Um, so June the 20th, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's going to be online for everybody. But if you're in Atlanta, we plan to open up our Atlanta office as well. So for those of us who are local and want to do, be in the room, then we'll have opportunity to be, physically there. But if you're not local to Atlanta, that's fine. So everything that Stella talked about, that she walked us through, the audits exercise that we just did, the steps you identified, all of that will be built into your personal plan, for your specific situation over the course of that day. So we've made it to where people that sign up today or people who that are present today get the priority access. We have an early access rate. So originally the program is a 297 program, but for today we've brought it down. We've gone 50% on it, so it's 147 for today. Again, we'll adjust it back. So so please copy the link. You can click on it, open it up, and go ahead and sign up. Sign up if you want to be a part of that in June 20th. We will still have one more of this corporate advisory hour sessions in June, and then the week following we'll have the career architecture intensive. So If that's something that you feel like will benefit you as you look to advance your career, then go ahead and sign up for it. And we can't wait to host you. So that's it. The rest of the night, we've said what needs to be said. Stella, any final words for everyone before we call it an evening?
No, absolutely. I think something very exciting. Very well, kudos to you being engaged. Would love to even hear what your experience has been, share with us. And this is a good one to even put on your LinkedIn for those who are looking to create
Yeah.
that capability. I was in this session, professional development is a key part of who I am, what I want to learn. I was in this session, I learned about ABC, whatever that is, and tag us. We will share it. Now we expand your content to our network as well. But also, please feel free to put in the chat, even what stood out to you today. What have you learned? We'd love to see that, hear that. But definitely working with you one on one, because that's why we go into the details at the career architecture intensive. And I'm super excited to work with each and every one of you.
All right, awesome. Thanks again, everyone. And if you still have questions, Stella and I will still hang around for a few more minutes. Um, but outside of that, that's it for tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you next month.
Bye, everyone.